So, welcome to Booksolve and the next video in the series of As I Read videos for this novel here, The Children of the Dead by Elfriede Jelinek. And this is pages 52 to 98 and chapters 5, 6 and 7. We'll go through looking at my little highlighter that I've put in the book. We start off with Karen Frenzel, who's one of these undead people who maybe has died in a bus accident, and we learn about her in this particular chapter and get some revelations about what's going on here. I think a little bit. We're in the lodge here. Fit to be tied together, our guests roam through the world with their hound dogs. This is how strong the bonds of love can be. Karen has no pet tearing at her. Her animal is already inside her, but it obeys only the mother's every word. So far, Karen hasn't actually met it, that animal. She can feel it twisting and looking for a treat, a reward in all the customary places her mommy put them. Where others, their built-in free will, which they occasionally have doctors check to see whether it is still flexible in all directions. Someone had tied an animal inside Carrie, which keeps eating its way to the exit without ever getting into the open. After all, it has always been nicely pampered with Purina puppy chow for that purpose. And that little piece, I think, demonstrates how caustic Elfrieda can be in her writing about our current society and some of the things that we accept and live by. It's not clear here. Again, is Karen alive and living, or is she dead? We don't know. Really, at this point, it feels as though she's alive and doesn't know that this fate is going to come upon her. But as we read through this chapter, Karen appears to go off on a hike with a number of other elderly people, tourists in the hotel. But then she wanders off and comes across by herself and comes across this deep pool, and it's at this pool where she has some revelation, and meets herself, or a figure of herself, and the chapter's pretty much about that encounter. In that liquid, and the forest-thin pubic hair that closes off the forest's body as it splits towards the creek and rises again on the opposite bank to become impenetrably thick and fleshy again. Something is growing there that we had sacrificed to our usage long ago. Fathom-deep humus of fir and pine needles that noiselessly layer under the feet, and then the black rock of water. It would smash you to pieces if you jumped into it. Karen was convinced of that. There is absolute silence. One would have to at least hear the rapids under the arched rock below. Or is it actually an ark loaded with desperate guests, pulling at the end of their rope to get it going again? An angry customer base. Jelinek seems to be always in sentences dueling up things, talking about what's happening now, and the underlying meaning of that, but then always flipping back to a comment on society in the same sentences. It's quite an achievement. Let's see, page 63. I think we'll go through to a longer section in this chapter. Nature begins to howl and toss frozen water around, even without considerable wind impact. Snow weighs between 30 to 150 kilograms per meter cubed, with wind up to 250 kilograms. They want to take her toy away. She is inconsolable, even though she was promised new ones in the shape of avalanches and alpine luches, the notorious rockfalls and other duds. The creases in the jogging suit, which would attract negative attention in a slimmer woman, stand still. The food rests peacefully in the body. Eating is like getting executed at the table, the only delight Karen allows herself, which doesn't mean she wants to experience herself, which doesn't mean that she wants to experience herself twice. The stranger, a lady who doesn't have to promise Karen any sacred spring, since she is already submerged into it up to her waist. Her torso stuck on the surface, rests on it like a garden gnome mistakenly placed atop the water. Her hair wet, hanging down, lacquered plaster, the water snuggling up against her hips. She is not reflected in it. That water doesn't do any good. It doesn't quench. It doesn't serve any sport. It rises again and again before it calms down again, an unruly strain of hair not wanting to get back into the hairdo, a book that cannot hold its pages. The women are facing each other, blood dripping from them occasionally, then no more. Not everything gets better with age. No crowd to admire it, nothing to brag about humanness that would dare to come out to bite its master, its mistress. Something that would, in turning round, turn against its owner with bared teeth, no longer tolerating its dependence on them in matters nutritional. The innermost nature of humans. The catch. It has the same face as you and I. This is why no one recognizes it. And as this theme of doubles, it's as though on death or before death, the soul is fractured into two different parts that then live simultaneously, and both are experiencing things simultaneously. Karen is both herself in the one woman and herself in this other phantasmagorical woman who's rising up from this pond, or throwing herself down this chasm, or which may go down or may go up depending on how you perceive it, how gravity is working at that time. And this is all very mysterious and very disconcerting. It throws you in different directions. Another theme in this is food. Talks a lot about eating, and particularly eating yourself. Cannibalism is not too far away from a lot of what is happening here about people and their experiences. So let's have a look at this bit here. The wind is getting stronger and stronger, a fierce breath, a white wisp across the mountain's flanks, shadows fluttering in the ravines, those skin folds oiled with human wax, like say get sore from all the dreck. There's some really excellent sentences on here. If you've not If you are not finished living, the repast can be returned to the kitchen. It can always be reheated again and again, so that what passed can become a singularity and return each time worse than before. This sort of resurrection of uh, of life, and its grasp being all the more degraded um, as it, and not only physically but mentally as well. Right, chapter 6 then still talks about Gudrun, and is still talking about her experience in this, and she goes off by herself, and then in the end gets rescued. She gets found as though she's had some kind of accident and that she's been injured, and the party, the rambling party, actually finds her and takes her back to the hotel. But there are lots of asides be all this in all this writing. It goes on to start to talk about about old women, and then about beauty pageants, and about young women and their bodies, and how we relate to the idea of beauty pageants. That seems to sort of come from nowhere, doesn't it? Let's see. Yeah. Oiled sex pliers dig in. They reach deep into the breadbasket. Oh, yes, it is what you see. These young female bodies want to finally cast off their deadly clinch so that they can sign a modelling contract in Paris, Rome, or Milan. Hurry up with the shooting, or they'll be too late. Getting to the bouncer of the Eternal. It goes on about those women. This writer's very feminist, very left-wing, very radical in how she approaches this subject, and very strong opinions about things. It's really putting it home in her writing. Goes back to Gudrun, looking through the door, through the keyhole in the door, and seeing herself and this male Adonis making love, and goes into big detail about what they're actually doing, which will move on to chapter 7, and back to this time to Edgar, the third of these protagonists, who's actually wandering down this zigzagged road down the side of the mountain, and coming across three ramblers who are going. A group consisting of 3 older men encounters Edgar, whose torso emerged at the white ribbon of the serpentine shoulder in order to cross the Alpenstrasse. In short, unexpectedly shooting upward in their midst, they are already descending. He flutters among them, a fallen eagle, still holding in his beak the liver of one always coming up short at the finish line. The tails of the Parkers tied around their waists rise sluggishly in the breeze, only to fall right back asleep. This apparition is not a superstition. It is as clear as day. Soon it will be dark. One of them wears a baseball cap backwards. He evidently set out for the mountain to stay forever young. 'Tis a melody not often heard by the workmen between heaven and earth, who keep knocking at the rock to pull themselves up on it. And no, it ain't Heaven's Gate, all gratinated with snowfields, melt into a giant surprise dish. It's probably just me, but it looks like there's a reference to Dylan there, really, with Forever Young and knocking on a rock. It's not Heaven's Gate. Yeah, maybe. Who knows? There are so many things of that ilk that we've got in here. Let's have a look if there's anything else that I wanted to remark upon. Before we get to the end of this. Oh, yes, I wanted to say that there are lots of puns and jokes in this that Elfrieda's inserted in it. And although I sort of recognise them, I don't personally find them particularly funny, but some people will sort of say, I think, oh, this is funny as well as being deep. So I don't know. But there are some important passages and important lines. Here we have, thus we believe the dead don't understand us, just because we don't understand them. Right away, the hunchbacked mountain pasture will slide down. The earth is already stretching herself mischievously. The wandering three suddenly find themselves face to face with Edgar. The older men instinctively stiffen. A jolt tears through them. They pull themselves together. Their watches do not measure time. They also measure their heartbeat, as if anyone cared about their lives. Everything has already been counted off in advance anyway. The valley below them suddenly lies in deep shadows, as if an evil thought had overcome it. For a moment the village, whose one and only brochure, its muscles trembling from the effort of holding its stately flower-framed balconies under our nose, drops out of its conception as a vacation spot. Eyes are looking through the windows. How did it suddenly get so dark? A late thunderstorm? The evening would not sneak in at such an early hour. Only the meadows still lie there in their richest green, dotted here and there by a creature bubbling up like a spring in athletic but somewhat scorched leisure wear, working itself out of its bind, bound as it is in elastic branding, and crawling, scratching, and looking for support, trying hard to climb up the grassy gradient. The dead are coming alive again, and interacting with the living that are there now. But there's not much difference between them. These tourists, these old people who've come to this poor part of Austria. This isn't high cost. This is out of season, end of the season, holidaying in Austria. That's available. That's the only thing that's available to this middle class clientele. These are not upper class people with loads of money to spare. But these are equated to being as tied to being dead and not actually living life and expressing their real opinions about things, and being satisfied with the dross that popular culture pushes at them. Um, so it's um, it's heavily critical of people in its delivery. Anyway, that's again another 20 minutes. Enough. We shall move on to the next chapters and read those and see what we glean from those. If there's got to be something new that goes on some kind of development. That's all on this particular video of As I Read. So it's goodbye from Booksolve at the moment, and happy reading to you all. Bye bye.